Sustainability, the future of our planet. I love how we Western people have created the most revolutionary idea of our time, from green building to zero waste lifestyle. This is what we have done to save the world. I mean, think about it. We have got electric cars, carbon neutral companies, green finances, circular economy. All of it is so modern, so scientific, and so Western, right? Modern, Western, that's cute. But let me take you back a couple of thousand years ago. Ever heard of Ahimsa, Panchamahabhuta, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam? Is that Sanskrit for carbon offset or net zero emissions? Long before net zero targets and sustainability reports, the people of ancient India lived with the nature and not just close to nature. Their philosophy, daily rituals, and even their architecture was built around ecological balance. So today, let me show you how sustainability was never new to India. It was just forgotten. So today, sustainability is everywhere, from corporate boardrooms to our food menus and even with branding campaigns. Companies are racing towards net zero emissions and governments are setting climate targets. And the words like circular economy and climate change, they just dominate every conversation. But let me tell you, all of these concepts are not new concepts. They existed thousands of years ago and they were a part of our Indian culture. And they were just forgotten over time, which are now rebranded and remolded to all of these new sustainability concepts. Okay, well, tell me about it more. In ancient India, sustainability was not a framework or a standard. It was just the way of life of every person. So let's discuss today some of these ancient Indian sustainability concepts, how they were forgotten over the years, and what can we do as the young generation to revive? Now, I am sure all of y'all must have heard of Ahimsa. Hey, I have heard about Ahimsa. It was what Gandhiji had taught everyone. Now, let me tell you, the concept of Ahimsa existed with us for thousands of years, even before Gandhiji made it popular. Now, in today's ESG scenario, we talk about zero harm, ethical sources, non-cruelty towards animals and living beings. We also have cruelty-free labels and regenerative agriculture. But thousands of years ago, this was the philosophy of the Indian way of living, and it was rooted in the principle of Ahimsa. Now, the literal meaning of Ahimsa is non-violence. But in the ancient Indian way of living, it just meant that you avoid taking any actions that cause pain or disturbance to any form of life. Today, with the ESG principles, we talk about avoiding negative impacts and conserving resources. But Ahimsa reminds us that sustainability is not just about saving resources. It also involves kindness and taking an informed decision about the choices you make in life. Hey, but then how did they actually conserve or think about the ecology, ecosystem, and the environment such a long time back? Well, the concept of Ahimsa takes us to our second concept, which is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The new modern sustainability frameworks, they talk about global supply chain issues, stakeholder engagement, transparency, and making sure that no one is left behind. The idea is to think beyond our immediate company or country and recognize how we all are interconnected and interdependent on each other. The concept sounds very forward thinking, right? But in ancient India, this was practiced every day through Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which literally means that the entire world is one big family. And with world, it is not just limited to human beings. It involves all sorts of living organisms, right? From plants, animals, even to the smallest microorganisms living. Now, this concept comes from the Maha Upanishads, which shapes how Indians viewed relationship, not just with people, but with animals, land, and even the cosmos. And this worldview nurtured inclusive governance, nature stewardship, and compassion beyond boundaries. In essence, it was ancient India's equivalent of a global citizen. So when we talk about climate justice, international cooperation, and ESG, you just know that it's coming from Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Hey, fine, but did they know anything about resource efficiency, natural capital, or environmental assets? In modern sustainability, we talk about natural capital, ecosystem services, and resource efficiency. We have created environmental KPIs to see how we react with air, water, and other natural resources. But in ancient India, this entire philosophy was built on the concept of Panchamahabhutas, or the five great elements. Now, these five elements were earth, air, water, fire, and space. Every living being and the entire planet was considered to be made of these five great elements. And hence they were treated as sacred. They were given the status of God so that people do not harm them, do not disrupt them, and they conserve them. The quality of your life was not dependent on the amount of money you owned, but it was dependent on the type of relationship you had with these five elements. Today we use scientific research and evidence to conserve these resources, but back then it was intertwined in our philosophical beliefs and in spirituality. The concept of Panchamahabhutas remind us that sustainability is not just about conserving resources, but it is more about honoring these resources. Hey, but I'm sure they might not know anything about land rights and real estate. In today's ESG framework, one of the most complex and sensitive issues is about land rights, and especially when it comes about the land rights of indigenous communities, displacement for development, or restoring the land to the local custodians. In fact, land stewardship has become one of the core concepts of social equality. But in ancient India, land was not seen just as a commodity. It was sacred, and giving away land voluntarily was considered to be one of the highest forms of worship. And this came with the principle of Bhumi Dan. Kings and wealthy landlords gave away fertile lands to farmers and other needy people. And this was not just to gain prestige, but it was also considered the highest form of charity. And spiritually, it was believed that donating land was like offering the highest form of life to someone. And the land was not just handed over. It came with a series of prayers and rituals which promised that the land would be taken good care of. And Bhumidan just showed us that social justice and environmental stewardship can go hand in hand. And both these resources could be well taken care of together. That's interesting. But tell me, how did they conserve food, or did they just waste it here and there? Now, one of the fastest growing conversations around the sustainability framework is about food conservation and food system. From food security and nutrition to zero waste kitchens. There is always one big question, that how do we feed people without hurting the planet? But for ancient India, this problem was well taken care of by the principle of Anna hi Purna Brahma, which means that food is entire divinity. So food was not just considered as a fuel, it was considered sacred. And so preparing food was devotion, sharing it was duty, and wasting food was considered to be a sin. So every time before eating your meal, people joined their hands and showed gratitude to everyone from the soil, farmer, crops, sun, and everything which impacted the nutrition chain. What we now call as farm to table or conscious consumption was already practiced through rituals, values, and community living. And if food is divine, our ancestors also believed that the way we created it, distributed it, consumed it, and even disposed it was not just a matter of efficiency but also ethics. Yeah, but then what about equality, equity, diversity, and inclusion? In today's sustainability and ESG world, there is a growing call for social equality, diversity, and inclusion. And this is not just for shareholders, but also for the stakeholders, community, and even the future generation. Leave no one behind is a core principle of UN Sustainable Development Goals. But our ancestors said this in their daily prayers. Loka samasta sukhinau bhavatu, which translates from Sanskrit as may all the living beings on this planet live happily. And this wasn't just recited in temples, but it was a collective aspirations for the entire community. And this Sanskrit prayer aligns with the KPI for happiness index and harmony of the communities. It reminds us that true sustainability isn't about surviving, but it is about thriving together as a community. Yeah, but then thousands of years back, without any AI computers, could they even calculate the interconnected matrix? If you have ever worked on an ESG project, you must have definitely come across words such as circular economy, systems thinking, or interconnected matrix. Now, these ideas push us to understand that everything is interconnected and things must flow in their natural order or natural flow of things. And we must act in alignment with the natural flow of things. Now, ancient India had a word for this cosmic order of things which was called Ritam. In the Vedas, Ritam is the nature of law, which says that everything in the universe flows in an interconnected and synchronized manner while following its own natural order. And this is evident through practices such as farming with the season, building with naturally available material, as well as consuming material that are locally available to us. Ritam also provided the principle that if you disturb the natural sync or the natural flow of any material, it causes a complete imbalance and disruption of nature. When ESG strategy follows system thinking or circular design, we are just following Ritam in a new and revived way. Okay, fine. But if India was so progressive thousands of years back, what just happened? Where did all the progress disappear? And why is India not so ecologically or environmentally friendly anymore? Now, after the flourishing period of ancient India, we had to face thousands of years of invasions from several foreign invaders, which was then followed by the colonial rule. Now, all of these invasions and colonial rule totally disturbed the way of life. Invasions and colonization was not just about political power, but it also caused a complete breakdown of economy, social equity, and spiritual beliefs. Our traditional farming systems were uprooted and replaced with cash crops only for the profit of the colonizers. Forests were rapidly cut down for timber exports, and rivers were converted into drainage systems. And land, which was once sacred, now became just a resource for extraction and exploitation. And most of all, our education systems were not just disrupted but destroyed. Our libraries were burned and we were taught with foreign knowledge for generations. And over the course of generations, the ancient wisdom which we already possessed with us just seemed to vanish and disappear. Due to the outflow of our economics, we just tend to lose connect with our spiritual beliefs. Because hey, if you're hungry, you're not going to think about spirituality. You're just going to think about monetary benefits. The resources like clean water, fresh air, or healthy soil, which was once offered and shared between communities, now had to be purchased for a price. And over the generations, this gap just tended to increase, and the later generations just forgot that sustainability was a part of our DNA. But the good news is that this wisdom is still with us. It is a part of our local languages, local traditions, and some of our sacred rituals. While the world is waking up for sustainability and climate action, we need to wake up to go back to our roots and regain the ancient wisdom which we had. So sustainability is not just about frameworks, jargons, or another form of economic benefit. It is the way of living which we had been doing for thousands of years and centuries. And to regain and revive our ancient sustainable way of living, I would only suggest everyone to learn your mother tongue, read the ancient scriptures available with us, go back to our roots like the Vedas, Upanishads, books like Arthashastra, and you will still get back a lot of ancient wisdom which we have lost. Okay, I get it, and I think I'll also try to research and learn more about the ancient wisdom which we get from India. So as we move forward in the direction of sustainability, stay impactful, stay gen sustainable, and try to go back to your roots. Bye-bye.